Alright, so in this video I just want to basically share a few things that have really been on my mind lately as it relates to this whole thing of people wanting to claim that they're above something or they've let something go, or this idea of something like non-attachment or some type of religious or spiritual evolution or superiority. And making the video under slightly odd circumstances because it's like 5 a.m. right now, and I went to bed last night about 7 p.m. pretty jet lagged, and a little bit congested from being in the plane all day yesterday. So I'm going to talk a little bit more muted. Anyways, so there's a whole thing around power, control, sex, money, and then also emotions and thoughts. And this is a really popular topic in kind of the mainstream world right now, because really power and control and these types of assertive, strong qualities are really quite demonized, and they kind of have been demonized through a specific agenda for quite a long time. And these are things that people are really typically afraid of, and they don't really understand, but also they claim to like be above it or not affected by it or non-attached, or these different variations on the same thing. What is that same thing? Basically, what I'm saying in this video is generally it's denial, or the other manifestation of it would be an overemphasis and a kind of addictive, compulsive quality. So an example of that is like someone, I don't know, like Osho, who was a popular teacher, and basically on the other end of it, you might have like rigid, or what would appear to be rigid, monotheistic type religions, which just say completely deny the body is bad, sex is bad, enjoying yourself is bad, life should meant to be hard, suffering, blah, blah, blah. But on the other side, we have this overemphasis, addictive, compulsive quality from someone who's like Osho or many other gurus who understood people were programmed in this way. And rather than telling them to deny it like everyone else has been doing, just tell them to completely indulge it and go into it. This is also a major mindset that came out through the hippie movement in the 60s, yet it's still completely incorrect because it's based in ignorance and kind of a blind, false expert type of arrogance. And I'll unpack those really even more, but what the actual solution, what the actual goal is, what the actual mechanic of transformation and growth is actual listening, actual understanding, and developing neutrality. So the general idea here is that a lot of people are stuck in denial and ignorance, and flatly all of us, to varying degrees, are stuck in these cycles. It's part of the human experience and part of growing. But the real idea and the thesis here is that really you can't be above what you can't actually do. You can't be above something that you don't have any proficiency in. So, for example, let's say someone is in the dating marketplace. What is really quite common is, let's say this is a really common one right now with a lot of men, is like, oh, well, the marketplace is just rigged and women are just this way and all these things are just this way, and so that's why I'm unhappy and I'm frustrated and I'm not successful, so I'm just going to completely walk away from it. This is part of a mindset from a group called Men Going Their Own Way. Not to illegitimize the entire movement or the whole thing, because I'm not a part of it and I haven't spent a ton of time in it for obvious reasons, but there's a huge faction of people with this mindset, meaning blaming all of these things, when in reality, they basically just don't have proficiency in it. Rather than looking at themselves and actually listening and understanding their own piece of the puzzle, they're denying that and blaming the external world and blaming people. On the flip side, a lot of women are doing the exact same thing, basically blaming men, blaming society, blaming all of these external factors, and saying, well, that's why the things are the way that they are, so I'm just going to not do that, I'm just going to do something else. rather than actually saying, oh, well, maybe it's because I don't have any real proficiency in that. I don't have any understanding. I don't have the ability to actually listen. I don't have any degree of neutrality within myself, and I'm stuck in this denial / overemphasis, addictive compulsion type quality, which is based in ignorance. So especially as it relates to even more spiritual type or alternative type communities, and even religion, we're talking things about sex, things about money, power, and control. People want to act like they're above it. People want to say, oh, well, money is this, money is that. But it's how do you really know what it is if you never really had that much to begin with, if you never really had a healthy relationship with it in the first place? It's like if I've never had poor tea, or the only poor tea I ever had was the lowest quality stuff that I could buy at like a basic store, then I would say, oh, all poor tea is garbage. Tea is garbage. It's poison. It's bad for you. And I don't like it. I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to cut that out of my life. But it's like you don't even know the first thing about it. You weren't educated. You don't have any experience. You don't have really anything to go off of instead of like a really blind, expert, arrogant type of an opinion. But generally, this is how people are living their lives, with all of these really oversimplified assumptions that are based with strong conviction and emotional compulsion, but really no understanding, no ability to actually listen, no real clarity. And again, it's a sliding scale and something we're all kind of sorting through. It's not a good or a bad thing or anything that we need to beat ourselves up over. It's again coming back to listening, understanding, and neutrality. Another thing is emotions. This is a huge one. People really, especially in the alternative scene, tend to get really deep into denial, or the other side of it is this obsession and overemphasis. People get really so sucked into this and become really over-identified with it, and their persona gets very lopsided, and this could consume the rest of their life. And the thing is at least in my experience, there's a bit of a cycle or a progress or a path of progression that we go through. Because just in the way that I was brought up in my life experience, I'm very familiar with having a lot of feeling and emotion, but then burying it or trying to be above it or deny it, or pretty much all the things you can do, did it when I was much younger. But basically, it's kind of a systematic process. The first, we actually have to start to be aware of what we're even feeling and what's even going on inside of us. Because a lot of times people don't even know that. They don't even really know what they feel or what they're feeling, because their mind and their body are extremely disconnected. And they may not even know where their mind is. They may not even know where or what their feelings are. And then especially people get into spiritual stuff, and because their mind is already so distorted, they distort the teachings, they distort the methods, and it just creates more distortion and more dysfunction. So they think, oh, well, I already dealt with all that. I already sorted all that out. It's like, well, no, you just are completely out of touch with it. So that's the first thing, is you actually have to start to have awareness. And the second is some ability to actually understand what that is, and then be able to communicate it to yourself and to other people in a pretty healthy and balanced and direct way. But you can't do that if you're not even aware of what's happening inside of you. You can't really do that if you're blaming everyone else. Oh, I feel this way because of the news and Donald Trump and feminism and Marxism and toxic masculinity, and this happened when I was 12 and this happened when I was 16. Develop this laundry list of all the external reasons why you feel a certain way, but you can't really do a lot with that. That's going to keep you pretty much stuck there for quite a long time, if not forever. Which is why you have to actually first start to have understanding about, well, wait, what is this really about? And people think humans are complex, relationships are complex, experience is complex. At the level of insanity and delusion and confusion, it is very complex. I agree. At the level of clarity, at the level of understanding and listening, it is not that complex. It's a handful of core responses that manifests in a specific, usually binary set of ways. So if we understand at the core what that is, value, my value and sense of self-worth, or it could be some sense of trying to have power or control over something. It's usually coming down to these basic core issues. So we have to be able to communicate that to ourselves, have understanding, and be able to communicate that with other people. Because not all of the emotional reactions that people have are necessarily irrelevant. At a certain stage, yes, that is true, but that's not where we really need to start. We need to start actually understanding that perhaps a negative feeling or emotional reaction to a negative situation is actually a correct response. Doing something repeatedly that makes us unhappy or causes us suffering or pain, that's something we need to understand. That's something we need to actually be able to listen to and move through. And then once we understand what we're feeling and why, and have some clarity and understanding, can communicate about it, then we actually start to develop understanding. We can listen to it, not necessarily have to engage with it, not necessarily have to go down that rabbit hole, but we just see it and understand it for what it is. And then over time, through having these proper qualities within ourselves, things change and transform. But this ties into a whole other aspect of power and control, because people really demonize these qualities and really are afraid of them. And the fact of the matter is, at least in my experience, people have a lot more power than they allow themselves to have. And the thing is you say these words, you say power, you say control, you say money, and oftentimes what will happen is someone's mind goes immediately to a negative space, or some type of extreme example. But the thing is, these things in and of themselves are basically neutral. It can be a lot of things. So if you say power and someone immediately goes to manipulation, oppression, coercion, abuse, those qualities are in their mind. It's kind of like if I talk about, I don't know, hypnosis or marketing or NLP, and someone's like, oh, you could just do that and manipulate and mess with a lot of people and be kind of a bad person. It's like, well, maybe you would do that, but that's not really what I'm going to do or have done. So we have to actually start to look at that. Because if you actually want to grow, if you actually want to be successful in life and be happy and be healthy and be effective, you need power. You need control. But the thing is, these things are kind of like currencies and resources. And generally people are in denial of them and or misinvesting those resources in ridiculous things. In the sense of the vast majority of people's energy is consumed with inauthentic, illegitimate pursuits and endeavors, which are a result of ignorance, basically, and denial of these things. Because you can ask a lot of questions, you can engage in a lot of things, and they're not all valid. They're not all going to lead to the place that you actually might want. So to go back to our early example, someone really overemphasizes their emotions. So they get into therapy, they get into all these alternative modalities, and they're 25 years in the game just going through their emotions and processing their emotions. At the end of the day, they're still pretty much right where they started off. It's just where they started off has been distorted and changed and rearranged 100,000 different times, that they tell themselves, almost they have to tell themselves that, oh, I've really grown, I've really done all these things. And maybe sometimes yes, but generally if it doesn't lead to these qualities, then it's still basically the same thing. And this is really a convenient mechanic for, capitalism and for keeping people oppressed and keeping people stuck in the same cycles and continually just buying a lot of things. Which, again, there's nothing wrong with that if it's actually leading towards useful, effective things. And going back to power, if you want to heal something, that takes power. If you want to get over something, that takes power. You want to overcome an obstacle, that takes power. You want to sort through your thoughts and emotions, that takes power and control. You want to make money, that takes power and control. You want to have a healthy sex life, well, obviously that takes power, that takes some control. If you're just completely lethargic and deficient, you're not really going to be able to do a lot in your life. You're not going to be able to achieve a lot. And this is really something that's terribly missed, especially as people try to engage in spirituality and meditation and other things. If you are operating from denial and ignorance and come really out of touch with your own experience, and you have really no power, you have no control, meaning your health is pretty poor, then how are you ever going to hope to sort through those things and move through those issues? You're really not. So what people do is, oh, these things are bad, so I'm just going to throw all these things out the window. I'm just going to focus on feeling good, following my bliss, listening to my body, doing ecstatic dance and going to festivals and using positive thinking and visualization and vision boards. And I'm going to invent all of these other things because all this stuff is bad. And I'm not going to even consider this side of things. I'm just going to stay in this realm because, it's comfortable and it's based on my pre-existing delusions, and everything's going to come out of those delusions, and I'm just going to be able to rearrange them in a way that's soft and gentle and comfortable, and it's not too challenging, not going to offend anyone, not going to hurt anyone's feelings, not going to hurt my own feelings, not going to challenge my own self, because all this stuff is bad, and I'm just going to stay here because, that's just really what it's all about. So that's when we get into this whole world that we are in of just kind of vague, generalized, impotent stuff. So kind of a long-winded way of basically saying we can't really be above or sort out things that we don't have any proficiency or understanding over. And then once we have those, then we're actually in a position to be like, I kind of get what this is about, and I can make an informed decision. Like I said about the puer, that's a good example of people operate under all these assumptions about all these things. They think they're an expert about all these topics and subjects, but they have no experience. They haven't gone into it. They haven't experienced it. So they don't really know. And they just kind of throw out, oh, I'm just above that. That's just bad, or so I'm just not even going to do it. I'm going to go, rise above and transcend and whatever else. Feel free to agree or disagree. It's not really important to me. Just sharing my view. Hopefully it's been helpful. If not, I'm sure there's a lot of cat videos to get back to. Anyways, I'll talk to you soon.